With 203 days to go until the midterms, the problems in this country just continue to mount. Today, we'll deal with a violent Easter weekend, more Democrat hypocrisy, and Fear Factor, the current reality show in D.C. Plus, we have a special guest with a must-attend event going on this weekend in Kansas City. We'll get to all that coming up on Dale Carter's America.
From the heart of flyover country, he's not on the far right, and he's certainly not on the far left. Like you, he's somewhere in the middle. This is Dale Carter's America.
Well, today is tax day. You all buttoned up on your taxes there, Kurt?
Taxes? What are those? Oh, shit. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you're buttoned up, right?
Yeah, I got it taken care of.
If that knock on the door comes and it's the IRS, we're going to know you're not buttoned up. Of course, the 18th is tax day this year because Emancipation Day was Saturday. They celebrated in the District of Columbia on Friday. So taxes, you got to hold on to your money for a few more days. And one more time, I've written a check so that the Pharaoh will get his, ill-gotten gain, the earnings tax, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't live in Kansas City.
Right.
And I still think it's taxation without representation. Before I die, before I leave this coil, I'm going to file a class action lawsuit against this city for all the years I've paid the earnings tax. Because it's taxation without representation.
Yeah.
Tell me it's not.
I mean, that's pretty much textbook right there. I can't think of a better example.
I can't vote for it. They vote for it every time it comes up for renewal, and the folks who live in Kansas City see all of us.
Yeah, we vote for it.
Yeah,
we
you
vote.
do. Yeah.
I didn't vote for it, but we... The royal we.
The citizens of Kansas City vote for it.
Right.
And everyone who lives outside the city, St. Louis does the same thing. And it was their answer to suburban flight. I'll be kind and call it suburban flight.
Right.
They wanted to keep some tax dollars in there. And so until we move the radio station out of Kansas City, which I wish we would because Westport is a hole, a dangerous hole, we're still going to pay the earnings tax. Okay, COVID masks on planes have been extended. I know you have flown. How was that?
Terrible.
Yeah?
Terrible. Yeah, it's just the mask. It's gotten to the point where it's like punitive, It feels punitive, and it's just so unnecessary and like constricting. The longer it goes, anytime that I am forced to wear a mask, it's just like, I just hate it. I'd almost rather drive at this point, to be honest. But, you only have a certain amount of time. You have to get there. You have to get back,
I'm going to Florida in less than 2 weeks, and so I guess we're going to be wearing masks on the plane. I have not flown since the whole COVID thing happened.
Yeah, I've only flown a couple times. I mean, I will say they're definitely less strict about it now than they were, when it first started. Certainly in the airport, there's tons of people walking around without masks, even though you're technically supposed to or whatever. Right. And then on the plane, it's just kind of like whatever. I mean, people are, doing the chin diaper thing, wearing it below their nose and all that. Because I remember I flew last year or in 2020, and it was like as soon as, you do this, they're like, put your mask on. It's like immediately someone's on you, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Well, I love Ted Cruz's comment on it. He says the extension of the masks, petty tyrants are committed to mask mandates, calling them petty tyrants at the CDC. So
that sounds about right.
Way to go, Ted Cruz. Ghost guns. That's still kind of a thing, right? Mm-hmm. Mayor Lucas was in D.C. towing the party line in Kansas City as murders continue. We had 4 in one 24-hour period, including a triple shooting at a party. Now, were they making ghost guns at the party? Was it a ghost gun party?
That sounds fun, actually. That sounds like a good party.
Yeah, I don't know. But he continues to just harp on guns and not crime. Nothing from the mayor or the president on crime. They just wring their hands over guns.
Yeah, it's just the newest scapegoat, this whole ghost guns thing. I mean, I guarantee you, if you asked the average citizen a year or 2 years ago, what is a ghost gun, they would have no idea. It's like people who now all of a sudden care about Ukraine. It's just the newest thing. I care about the current thing. Put the flag in your bio. Put ghost guns in your profile picture or whatever. And but I think you brought this up. I mean, how many of these guns are actually being used in crimes? I mean, how common is this really? Like, is this really a problem?
Would you take the time to put a gun together, or would you just go steal one? I mean, these are criminals we're talking about to begin with. And, I put that in for the podcast, not knowing that there would be 3 mass shootings over the Easter weekend. And by the way, I saw the coverage on it. Mayorkas might want to amend what he sees as the greatest threat to the country.
Yeah.
Just saying. I know that's not politically correct.
Yeah.
But, him saying that the greatest threat, he's our Homeland Security guy, okay?
Right.
He could name anything. He could say China. He could say Russia. He could say terrorism. He says that the greatest threat to the republic is white supremacy in this country.
Yeah. And
where's the evidence?
there is none. I mean, and where they try and concoct evidence, they're cooking the books. They're calling everything. I mean, if you can go to the SPLC website and things like that, the ADL and whatnot, and it's like, they'll have this map of like all these terrible white supremacist incidents, but they're including everything. It's like, if a white guy, there's a domestic dispute with a white guy involved, they're counting it as like white supremacy or some BS like that.
Well, you saw what happened in South Carolina at that the shopping mall in Columbia, South Carolina. 9 people were wounded in a shooting. They got one of the shooters. They let him out on bail. He's sitting at home with one of those, what do you call it?
Ankle bracelet.
The ankle bracelet. And he's going to be on work release until his trial date.
Yep.
I mean, that's what's wrong with all of this.
Yeah.
When you commit a crime with a gun, I've talked about it many times. The solution is it's not talking about the gun. It's talking about the crime and the criminal. And I'm telling you, you commit a crime with a gun, in my world, this is Dale Carter's America after all, I'd lock you up.
Yeah.
You would not get out.
I would like to ask anyone who, espouses this idea that white supremacy is such a huge problem, why is it that people who simply went into the Capitol on January 6th are still in solitary confinement awaiting trials for just walking into a building?
Right.
Meanwhile, you have people who are committing violent acts with guns.
Yeah. Home on work release.
The South Carolina thing, the kid that shot up the school in, I think, Texas or something. This was a few months ago. Obviously, no one's talking about it now. The Waukesha.
Waukesha. I'm going to make a Wisconsinite out of you yet.
Yeah, right. The SUV guy.
Yeah.
All of these people released on bail. Is that white supremacy? Is that white privilege? Is that us getting white privilege for, being in solitary confinement? Not us, obviously, but, white people being in solitary confinement for
You've been
a
to
year.
Washington, D.C., right?
Yeah, many times.
So have I. You go outside the Supreme Court, and there's Lady Justice holding the scales. Mm-hmm. What does Lady Justice have on her head?
Blindfold.
A blindfold. Why can't we just look at crime and criminals and stop making it about race?
Yeah. Well, that's just not what's happening. And it's, people want to talk about racism and racial prejudice in the justice system. I mean, there is, but it's not in the direction that people say that it is.
I put up a deal on our Facebook page. The Wall Street Journal did an excellent article on the Biden administration resuming oil leases on federal land. Did you see we got a reply to that, a very long-winded reply from obviously a liberal saying that, even if oil's a worldwide commodity, and because of that, you can't really influence it one way or the other. We can deal with that separately, but if you just read the headline, Biden administration resumes oil leases on federal lands. First of all, he's going back on something he said he would never do,
right? Because
he ran as the Green president, Green New Deal.
Right.
We're going to get rid of all
fossil fuels.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm on some cold medication, so I may not be firing on all cylinders.
No, it's okay. I feel, a couple weeks ago I was on 30% because of the float trip. Now I'm carrying the weight. You're on 30%.
There you go. Okay, so here's the fine print that the Wall Street Journal found, though. The land sales come with higher royalty charges for gas and oil produced and a sharp reduction in acreage available to be leased.
Mm-hmm.
So the devil's in the details.
Right.
Yes, he said that. But he's not doing anything. And what I would say to this guy who says we can't influence the worldwide market, how did we go from a net exporter of energy to a net importer of energy?
Mm-hmm.
And I get what he's saying, that world events can cause fluctuations in the price.
Right.
But if we're a net exporter and we keep things fairly calm, there's not a war going on here, we can keep the price of it low.
Yeah, and that argument
We
just
did.
doesn't make any sense. I mean, you wouldn't apply that to anything else, right? Like you wouldn't be like, well, food is a world market, so we don't need to grow food. Like that's not a concern. We shouldn't have to worry about growing food because it's a world market. Well, yeah, we are part of the world. Like we are part of the world. We're one of the biggest energy suppliers in the world, and we have the capability to be an even bigger energy supplier. Do we want to supply energy to the rest of the world and at a net level, or do we want to net buy energy from the rest of the world from people that hate us? I mean, that's just the basic question. You can dance around that all you want, but it's like, are we going to produce energy or are we not going to produce energy? It's really that simple.
And then you have to genuflect at the altar of people who really don't like us.
Yeah.
And that list is growing.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is like to expand on that, this whole idea of like the world market, and we're subject to the world events and things like that. Like, does that really have to be the case? I mean, if we were truly energy independent, then maybe we wouldn't have to do that. Maybe we could just provide our own energy, and then we wouldn't have to worry about the world market.
Gee, that sounds like how it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Just saying. Okay, well, those are the news headlines. And again, we want to thank Jim Dingman and all the fine folks at Funhouse Pizza in Lee's Summit and Blue Springs. We told Jim when he came on board that we need to do this podcast at probably the Lee's Summit location on 50 Highway.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be fun. You guys will be having a nice interview, and I'll be off on the side playing pinball.
Yeah, he's got pinball machines. He's got great pizza, great beverages, and all that. And fun is in the name. So Funhouse Pizza, Lee's Summit, and Blue Springs. We really need to get that done. And what I kind of envision in that is a lot of the folks who listen to the podcast every week, especially the local ones. Mm-hmm. I know my friend Rick Rainey down in South Carolina is probably not going to come in for it. Although, Rick, you could.
He could.
You could. You could stay with me.
Yeah.
We went to high school together.
Oh, okay.
It's not like I'm inviting everybody to stay with me. But,
well, you've never invited me to stay with you, so.
Yeah, exactly. and I haven't yet. Maybe one day you will get the invitation to Casa del Cardo.
Okay.
All right. But Rick, you want to come up from South Carolina, bring your lovely wife Jody with you, and you could stay with me, and we'll do the podcast at Funhouse Pizza. It's going to be a lot of fun. We thank Jim Dingman for being a believer in Dale Carter's America. Hypocrisy 101. I mean, this is a topic that I could put in every week. Mm-hmm. I really could. But, these are just things that I rack these things up during the week, and it just, I don't know, gets stuck in my craw. So the Democrats were cheering the three Republicans, and I put Republicans in quotes, who voted for KBJ as great examples of bipartisanship. That's what they're calling it. Romney, who else? Collins
and Murkowski.
And Murkowski. Those are the three. Okay. Do you
know? The three amigos.
Do you know, Kurt, how many Democrats voted for Amy Coney Barrett?
I'm going to guess a fat donut.
A fat donut.
Yeah.
Right. How many Democrats voted for Brett Kavanaugh after they savaged him?
Definitely a fat donut.
Actually, it's one.
Oh, really?
Manchin voted for Kavanaugh.
Oh.
And then Manchin was attacked for his vote.
Well, yeah, he must be a rape apologist.
Oh, wait a minute. I thought that if you crossed the aisle during one of these things, you were a great example of bipartisanship.
Right.
It's all a bunch of hypocritic bullshit.
Yeah. Well, it's the ends justify the means. I mean, I think it's transparent at this point, not only that it's hypocrisy, but that the left doesn't care if it's hypocrisy. They're expecting people to not catch on to that, and they're expecting people to just be just like them. And, the ends justify the means. We need to get our people in. We need to promote our agenda at any cost, and that's why they're winning. That's why the right is, largely in a lot of ways losing, I think. 203
days, that's not going to be the case.
We'll see.
I think everybody is on board with that's going to happen at some level. It's just a matter at this point of what the margin is going to be. But we got to call these guys out because they think we're stupid. Mm-hmm. They think the voters are stupid.
Yeah, well, are they wrong?
And, going back to like Obama with Obamacare, mm-hmm. when he lied to the American public about, what Obamacare was going to be,
right.
He was lying to his own base.
If you like your doctor, you can keep it. Yeah. Your premiums will go down.
Because Republicans didn't support it at all. Mm-hmm. Zero support from the Republican side. So they think Democrats are stupid. They can lie to their faces about everything about it.
Yeah.
All right. Hypocrisy chapter 2 here. Joey B. approves ethanol blend for summer despite the EPA saying it causes smog. Anything at this point to get the price down by Election Day. The day after Election Day, they don't give a shit. They're just trying to get some folks in purple districts over the finish line any way that they can, and it doesn't really matter. So ethanol, the blend has been approved for summer. He won't address the root problem. We just pointed out that when he acts like he's addressing the root problem, he's actually making that worse too.
Right.
Yeah. So we're going to get ethanol.
Yeah, and
smog.
Yeah, I'm not no expert certainly on ethanol and the burning of it and everything, but from the little that I've seen, I mean, it seems like it doesn't burn as cleanly like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Plus, you're putting a bunch of energy into crop production, because it's corn basically. It's
right.
It's a corn byproduct that
at a
is
time when we're going to have food shortages.
Yeah, exactly. That is being cut into the gasoline, and it's also, from what I hear, not good for engines. Not particularly good for engines. So yeah, it's just grasping at straws and trying to, I guess, cut prices. But who knows? Who knows if that'll even work? Maybe.
By Election Day.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Because all they care about is trying to win at any cost, and then they'll go back to exactly where they are.
Yeah,
trying to run the country on wind and solar and rainbow farts.
Yeah.
And we see how that's working out.
Well, maybe he should wait a little bit, like the strategic reserve thing. I mean, the last time he did it, it brought the price down by 6 cents or something for a week and a half. Right. So maybe wait till September or October. You get that little week and a half dip right before the election. It's only April.
Well, October is the time when stuff happens before elections to try and make a little bit of a difference here. We'll see if that's what Joey B is going to do. Well, we're just going to try and keep him honest here as we get closer and closer to Election Day.
Absolutely.
Fear factor. Democrats are terrified and they're spreading fear like never before. First thing I want to touch on is a warning from the National Urban League. Okay. A report from the National Urban League is warning that U.S. democracy may be on the verge of collapse. The civil rights organization released its 2022 State of Black America report, claiming that certain lawmakers, consultants, and violent extremists are trying to disenfranchise, delude, manipulate, and intimidate American voters and establish a one-party rule in the U.S. that works against black and brown voters. Well, we must be talking about Democrats, because right now Democrats control the White House and both houses of Congress.
My eyes,
I know, your eyes are rolling.
Roll all the way back into my head and never come out.
The report continues to claim that voter suppression and income inequality will precipitate the collapse of democracy. So is it our fault for noticing how bad things have gotten?
No, I mean, I think this is just another example of the perfect manipulation of language and the manipulation of people's emotions. I mean, you have so many catchphrases in there that just mean absolutely nothing. Like the collapse of our democracy.
Yeah.
First of all, we don't live in a democracy. Democracy is not inherently good. It's not collapsing. Nothing about it is collapsing. And if it is, it's not because of conservatives. You have a single party rule to oppress black and brown. It's just gobbledygook nonsense, but it has all of the key phrases that people want to hear. And people are so dumbed down. The voter base is so dumbed down to just vote based on their emotions that they hear that and they just act on it, and they don't even think about it.
I put it under fear factor.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the catchphrases I left out was Putin's price hike.
Yeah.
So, as we talk about this, I made some notes, and I want to know exactly what Democrats are afraid of. So if you're a Democrat and you're terrified right now, fear factor, it's pinging at about a 100 for you. What exactly are you afraid of? Here's some things I came up with if the Republicans take control this fall. Less government spending. And I don't even know that that's a guarantee. We've talked about so many times, Republicans are driving toward the cliff at the speed limit and Democrats at warp factor 7. So my hope, and I think your hope, is less government spending.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? More freedom. Boy, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. More personal responsibility. I know there are some people who don't want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other side of the coin of freedom is responsibility.
Yep. Stronger border.
Yep. 100%.
Title 42 is about to expire, and even Democrats who were in border states are saying, please don't do that. But it's going to happen anyway, so you're going to see a surge like you've never seen at the southern border unless we get in there and do something about it. More effective prosecution for crime.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Energy independence, which we've talked about a little bit here. If Republican policies led to the mess that we're in, Kurt, I'd be terrified too.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. So pardon us for noticing that things are horrible and not buying into the blame game that it's somehow Republicans' fault, the party that is not in power right now.
Yeah. And I think,
what am I missing?
No, I mean, I think you're pretty much hitting the nail on the head. And I think we just need to start asking more questions, because you can break down that whole thing like so easily, like all the things that I said that I mentioned of the, boilerplate talking points, just ask what they mean. Just ask, what is that? What is that?
Disenfranchise. How are we disenfranchising?
Yeah, exactly.
The president himself said that tightening up the election laws to not codify the COVID emergency things that went into place was worse than anything from the Jim Crow era.
Yeah.
Does anybody believe that? Does he even believe it?
I don't think it matters if they believe it or not, because the thing is, like, it's just emotional manipulation. So once you get that emotional outrage going, then it doesn't really matter whether you believe in it or not, or whether it's true, because you're already emotionally involved to the point that you're going to pull the lever in the voting booth. And that's really, at the end of the day, all that it's about. And the people that are being manipulated, they don't even think about that. They don't even stop and think, well, wait a second, Jim Crow, like, is this true? It doesn't matter to them.
It just sounds good. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Manipulate and intimidate American voters and establish one-party rule in the U.S. That's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, if you buy into that, you're probably terrified, because you know that it's 203 days to go. There's going to be a red tsunami like you've never seen because of what's happened since Joe Biden's taken over.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wanted to talk about the politics of crime in New York. How the story changed when a black man was the suspect. You remember the story that we're talking about, right?
The Brooklyn
Frank
subway
James,
shooting.
the subway shooter and all that. CNN dropped race as a descriptor. They were looking for the guy, right? And they dropped the fact that he was a black male. It was a heavy-set male in a green shirt.
Yeah, they had his shirt and his hat in the description. He might take those off.
An MSNBC anchor, when it became clear that Frank James was a black male, said, damn, damn, damn.
Yeah.
And then the MSNBC site dropped the story and made their headline a story about Jared Kushner.
Yep.
So Frank James, allowed to spew hate on social media, sought bail and was denied for now.
Yep.
You have to wonder if Kamala is going to come to his rescue.
Who knows? I mean, I think, the story is already going away. I mean, it's going out of the news cycle already. But yeah, and you brought up his social media feeds and stuff. I mean, on Facebook, he was like calling for genocide of white people and shit, like on Facebook. And he wasn't banned. He wasn't shadow banned. He wasn't suspended temporarily or anything.
White motherfuckers, this is what they do. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they kill and commit genocide against each other. What do you think they can? What do you think they're going to do to your black ass? That's your friend. You got a white friend, really? They're going to kill you, nigga. They're going to kill you. No, they're going to torture you first. They're going to you up first, real good.
So
he doesn't even like KBJ, the newest Supreme Court justice, because she has a white husband.
Right.
Doesn't think the races should be mixing.
Right.
So who's the bigot here?
Yeah. And again, just going back to this idea of white supremacy, I mean, just imagine if the races were reversed. Imagine if there was a MAGA hat wearing, redneck who went to a subway and started shooting people. And then it turns out, that he's got like pro-Trump, right-wing content on his Facebook page, I mean, we would never hear the end of it. I mean,
it would still be on.
You think that George Floyd was in the news for a long time.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
I mean, this would be like the calling card of every single Democrat politician for 30, 50 years. I mean, seriously.
So when the reality happens and we see things like this in South Carolina, and I haven't even mentioned Pittsburgh yet, they had one. Portland had a mass shooting over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I did not see race on that. I did see the race in Pittsburgh. I saw the race in South Carolina. And those stories, like you said, they evaporate into thin air.
There was another one. I don't know if anyone was necessarily shot or how many people, but I saw a video last night. There was another one in Houston at their like major mall. Their like big fancy mall in Houston. There was a bunch of people in the parking lot shooting at each other. And let me just say, white supremacy is not it's not involved. So
I wonder if Mayorkas is going to make it long term. I mean, how he can stand up with a straight face and say that. Another thing that evaporated into thin air was the whipping of migrants at the border by Border Patrol agents. When that came out and they looked into it, they had an investigation, and it turned out that they were doing exactly what they were supposed to do. I mean, Biden even went out and said there was going to be harsh discipline over all of this,
right? Because
he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about,
right?
I think it's important when you lead at any level to know what you don't know, okay? And what you don't know, you should bring in experts, okay? I know a little bit about this from running a radio station for 40 years, okay? The things I don't know, I bring in experts for. I don't go out there and shoot from the hip and talk about shit that I don't know anything about.
That is so true, man. That is so true. It's very important to know what you don't know, because there are sort of, I forget, there was some famous intellectual that broke this down, but there's like different classifications of knowledge. There's like the known, there's the known unknown, and there's the unknown known, meaning what you know that you know, what you don't know that you don't know, and then what you don't know that you don't know. You know what I'm saying?
I would love to see Kamala Harris do that whole thing you just did. That
well,
whole
I kind of screwed it up too, but I think she would do worse. But yeah, and again, just going back to this whole narrative of the white supremacy and everything like that. I mean, there's a reason that these stories go away so quickly. It's because it doesn't fit the narrative. It's because if you actually look at what's going on, you'll see that no, it's actually like the opposite that's happening. You know, if you look at these crimes and you look at the crime statistics and everything else, and bail reform and all of this stuff, it's the opposite of what we're being told. And specifically, like with the Border Patrol thing, this goes into the whole media manipulation of the narrative and language and everything like that, because what they'll do with all these stories is they'll come out with the headline. The headline says, Border Patrol agents whipping migrants at the border. And then you find out that that's not actually the case, but the narrative has already been set. And then you'll get a correction, on line 83 of a story, well, like in small little italic print, like actually,
right.
But they never come out and
Page
say
55 of the news section of the New York Times.
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting that Frank James is allowed to have this huge, media presence and all that, that Putin is allowed to be on Twitter, and Donald Trump is still not allowed to be on Twitter. He's like the biggest pariah in the world. Twitter won't let him on. And I wonder, will that change if Elon Musk ends up buying Twitter? Because that was the big story last week.
Yeah, I sure hope so, man. I know you and I have disagreements about Donald Trump's personality, but man, do I miss that guy on Twitter. Oh, man. It would be so good to have him back.
Yeah, I mean,
it would be so good.
I just felt like when he was president, I wanted to... I love his policies. Don't get me wrong. His policies are needed right now in this country. Biden keeps going on and on about how many jobs he's created, and which is complete bullshit, because we shut the economy down during COVID. So the jobs are coming back. I'm not sure how you can count those as things happening because of Biden's policies.
Yeah.
I saw a Democrat spokesperson on a panel on Fox News over the weekend, and he was talking about all the jobs that Joe Biden has created, how great this economy is, blah, 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 blah. And then he said, Republicans, you don't have a plan. And the Republican guy goes, well, first of all, you guys have the White House, the House, and the Senate. So it's your ball game. You don't need us to do anything right now. And secondly, we do have a plan. We don't want to spend $6 trillion in monopoly money, okay?
Yeah.
We want to get energy independent. We want to harden up the southern border. So there are plans in place, but that's their new thing. It's like Republicans don't have a plan.
Well, here's a new talking point for Republicans, maybe that could be used. Like, sometimes not having a plan is not a bad thing.
No.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, why do we need to have a plan for
Exactly.
everything? Why can't we just let things happen the way that they're supposed to and get out of the way?
Yeah.
Maybe not having a plan is good.
Sometimes government is the problem.
Yeah.
And I think government is a huge part of the problem right now. But, my thought on this whole Twitter thing, first of all, was I don't really care. I got off Twitter because, I found it more a pain in the ass and more of a problem than it was a help to me.
Right.
So I got off Twitter. So what would happen if Republicans everywhere just said, screw you, Twitter, we're just going to take our ball and go home. And it can be your own little circle jerk fest, and all you lefties can spew all of the bullshit that you say, and we won't be on Twitter.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, it is a big hypothetical because it is such an influential platform.
Why is it influential? Because, and I'm going to challenge you on that, because what I hear people say is the universe of people on Twitter is very small, but they're talking to each other a lot. And so it's become influential. But the great majority of Americans are not on Twitter, so they don't give a shit.
Sure. But and I mean, obviously in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it's just social media. There are plenty of things that are far more important. But as far as social media goes, I mean, you have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have Google. Those are kind of the three main companies at this point, maybe TikTok. But, Twitter is influential in terms of the public narrative, in terms of the media cycle, in terms of even policy in a lot of cases. Like the Florida parental rights bill that is everyone's talking about.
You mean the Don't Say Gay bill?
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's how they're couching it.
Yeah. Well, I've heard people say this, and I think there may be some truth to it. There's this Twitter account that's called Libs of TikTok, and it's all videos of like these crazy lefties talking about gender theory and like teaching trends in the classroom, and there's like teachers on there and everything like that. And it has, I think, now over 1 million followers, and the videos on Twitter have many millions of views. And I've heard the argument made that single Twitter account probably influenced that Florida bill in a great deal, because you see who's sharing what, you see things coming across people's radar, and it does make a difference. But to your point about people like leaving Twitter, I think it is possible, but it's just it would take such like a singular event for that to happen, because you could have people kind of trickling out or trickling in, but in order to have like this unified thing where all conservatives are just going to all leave at the same time.
I'm not a big boycott guy. I vote with my dollars, and I vote with what I pay attention to.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to take my dollars somewhere else. I'm happy to take my attention somewhere else.
But yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about Elon, buying Twitter, and I do think that
they're
would be
freaking out on the left about that.
Oh, which is great. I mean, honestly, I think we're at the point pretty much on every issue where if the left is like, triggered over it, then it's probably a good thing,
That's why I put this all under fear factor, because Democrats, when you see them, they are terrified. Oh my God, the Republicans are about to take over.
Yeah.
And it just led me down the road of, what are you afraid of?
Yeah.
What is it the Republicans are going to do? What's in their policy that you're afraid of?
What they're really afraid of is losing their monopoly over the narrative. That's what they're really afraid of. And in the case of Twitter specifically, I mean, the entire board is left wing. The company is left wing.
Right.
All of the investors in Twitter right now are supportive of this narrative because it's making them a lot of money. And it's interesting because you have people, I think it was on MSNBC or somewhere, and I'll try and find the clip.
There are real and devastating consequences for using that platform to lie. And we've seen it. We've seen it happen. I wonder, when talking about this, it's kind of funny. Oh, Elon Musk wants to buy it, but there are massive life and globe altering consequences for just letting people run wild on the thing.
Yes, 100%. But that's Facebook is really where the real action is in that. So this is a very small company. It has an outsized influence because media people like it, politicians, world leaders, and Elon Musk. And so one of the issues is if he's not going to do this, and by the way, Twitter and some of its biggest investors, like Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, are saying no, and they're putting poison pills in. What is he going to do? He's going to have to somehow unload this 10% stake.
Speech is violence, and like he's going to allow people to say dangerous and hateful things. Right. Meanwhile, I mean, you can look at the current stakeholders in Twitter. It's like the Saudi princes, it's BlackRock, like the largest real estate, conglomerate in the world that's has all kinds of shady monetary ties. Yeah. It's all of these people that like foreign leaders and stuff. I mean, so you're saying that you want to keep Twitter with the Saudi prince instead of, with Elon Musk. And then, of course, there's the funny angle, which is, this would be the first major social media company owned by an African American. So we have that to look forward to.
All right.
Because Elon is South African.
I did not know that.
Yes.
So just kind of threw me a curveball because I'm thinking I've seen his face and it's like...
Elon Musk is indeed an African American. So we could have our first African American social media company.
All right. Well, go Elon. We'll see. We'll continue to track this and see how it goes. Up next, special guest Paul Ciappa with a must-attend event. If you love veterans, if you support the military and you live in the Kansas City area, a huge event coming up this Saturday, and we'll talk to Paul Ciappa coming up next. Well, we have a special guest with us. Paul Ciappa is here. You're with an organization called FISH. I see it right on your shirt.
That's right.
Tell me what FISH is.
So Friends in Service of Heroes is a 501c3. Initially, when I started this in 2013, it was called Food Industry Serving Heroes, FISH. And me being in the food industry, I own a trade journal for the grocery industry. That's how it all started. I just, after 9/11, wanted to help someone, go feed someone. And sure enough, I meet a Marine colonel that introduces me to a Marine general. Next thing we know, we're doing what we call our Heroes Dinner at Cherry Point, North Carolina, where the general was the host and the honorees were the young Marines and the spouses. And we did about 4 or 5 of those, Dale. And then one night after one of the dinners, we're outside having a debrief, a scotch and a cigar. And the commanding general, who was aloof all night, finally got his attention, and he said, that he'd lost 3 Marines earlier that morning, and he made a statement to me that I'll never forget. He said, "America will never know these young Marines except for their mommies and daddies and fellow Marines because America's not at war." I didn't know what he meant by that, Dale. What do you mean America's not at war? Paul, it's 2013. America's not at war. They're at the mall. And it was that statement that just pierced my spirit.
Because we were at war at that point in Afghanistan.
We were.
Now, the interesting thing is we're not at war technically now, but we've got a lot of veterans who are back who certainly need our help.
Yeah.
And your organization goes back to the Vietnam era. Now, I remember the Vietnam era when those folks came back, they were not appreciated for what they did. And now our generation is trying to make up for that. But you've got veterans you still have Korean War veterans, you got Vietnam veterans.
World War II veterans.
All the way up to the kids that are coming back from Afghanistan.
That's right. And that's what makes FISH a little bit unique. Most organizations that you hear about, it's always post 9/11, post 9/11. Well, what about those World War II veterans?
Exactly.
What about the Vietnam veterans? Desert Storm, the Forgotten War, Korea. What about Somalia? We haven't forgotten them. So everything that we do, when we say we're going fishing, that's the principle that we use. They never see us coming.
Yeah.
Because the veterans that really need the help are never going to ask. It's always about someone else. It's always, give it to someone else. I'm okay. I'll figure it out. No. In this situation, we've gone fishing. It's you. We're reeling you into the boat, and we're going to help you either with a service dog or mobility chair, whatever the need might be. So we just kind of step in there and we bring them into the boat, and they become kind of family. We kind of do life with them.
Okay, so before we get to the big event coming up on Saturday, give the folks an email or website so that they can read all about this, get the background on your organization.
Sounds good. Our website is friendsinserviceofheroes.org, and heroes is HEORES. heroes.org. So friendsinserviceofheroes.org. And my email address is paul.ciappa, CHAPA, at servingheroes.org. army.org.
You know, the beautiful thing about a podcast is they can pause it, they can rewind it. It's like, hey, I didn't quite get that. So I think I'll pause and I'll rewind a little bit. Your 6th annual Armed Forces Day celebration is coming up this Saturday. Tell me what's going on.
All right. So typically Armed Forces Day is the 3rd Saturday in May.
Right.
But we've moved it up this year for a number of different reasons, weather being one of them. But the most important reason we moved it up is the 23rd of April is the Army Reserve's 114th birthday. And they actually just said, is there any way that you guys would be willing to move it up? We'll call it an Armed Forces celebration. So we're doing that. We moved it up so we don't have to interfere with weddings and graduations and God forbid the weather. And so it's going to be an extraordinary event on Saturday.
What will people see when they get there?
Oh my gosh, we got.
We should tell them where it is first. Executive Airport.
It's Executive. It's in New Century, which is Gardner.
Okay.
The Executive Airport out there. This Saturday starts at 9 a.m. Goes to 4. We're going to have tanks there. We're going to have MRAPs there. We're going to have Chinooks. We're going to have Blackhawks there. We're going to have a KC-135 refueler. This thing is huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And we're also going to have the Golden Knights performing. A friend of mine, you probably know the name, Joe Everson. Joe is a young man that sings the national anthem and paints at the same time.
Oh, I have seen that at Arrowhead, right?
Yes. So Joe is coming in, and he's going to sing the national anthem and paint. We are going to be presenting a service dog, maybe 2. We are going to be also presenting some mobility chairs. And, again, most of these people have no idea that they're going to be receiving these things. That the fishing principle that we talked about, we've known about them. We've known about their families, know their situation, and the time will come where it's going to be a surprise.
Yeah.
This is going to be a life-changing event for you.
Well, it's a big event.
Experience.
And, if you're looking at the calendar, you do see that it's the 3rd Saturday in May, but it's going to be this Saturday. In Gardner, and you're expecting a big crowd.
We're expecting about 10,000. In fact, parking is going to be a challenge. And so I want to make sure everybody understands that parking is going to take place at the Gardner Edgerton High School and also over at Wheat Ridge Middle School. So Shuttles. Yeah, we'll have about 11 buses running all day long.
Cool.
And so it'll be easy for people to get on and off. But it's going to be an extraordinary event. Besides the military, we're also asking Johnson County Sheriff's Department. They're going to be there with a bunch of their equipment. Now it's become a competition. We've got Olathe bring in their SWAT units. We've got Overland Park bring in their SWAT units. In fact, I understand they're also going to bring Mike Mosier's squad car.
Oh, very cool.
And we got Lenexa coming, Gardner, Edgerton. We've got the Border Patrol coming. We've got boats coming. This event is going to be a must-see. And we do hope that the public, the community turns out and thanks those that defend our country each and every day, and also locally our police and fire departments and also their families. Because, Dale, we hear it all the time. People thank the veterans that have served and those who are in the uniform, but we forget that there's a family waiting at home for them.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that we really, pride ourselves in doing. We always recognize the families. But it's going to be a great day.
All right. We'll have a great event. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast to share the good news.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dale. I have something for you, by the way. There's a military tradition called coining. You ever heard of it?
Challenge coin, I have. I got one from the folks in Leavenworth last Saturday. There you go. All right.
That's our challenge coin for you.
I'm starting to get a collection of these things.
There you go.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Kurt, that's going to be a huge event down there in Gardner at New Century Airport. A lot of military hardware. Kids are going to love that, and I hope the weather holds for them. I always like to do a little funny story at the end here, and I found this, and I thought it was just hysterical. KCPD reporting that roughly $100,000 worth of stolen merchandise has been recovered following a rash of thefts at storage facilities in Lenexa, Olathe, and Overland Park. Police reportedly are looking for a male suspect who allegedly cut owners' padlocks and replaced them with his own before emptying the storage lockers of their merchandise. You know where they found the merchandise?
I do not.
In a storage unit belonging to the suspect.
So he moved it from one storage unit to another storage unit?
To his own storage unit.
Okay. It's like Storage Wars. You ever see that show?
So I thought that was funny. Maybe you don't.
It's pretty funny.
Mildly amusing.
It's mildly amusing. Yes,
It
that's
kind
a
of
good way of putting
matches
it.
how I feel on tax day 2022. And to the Pharaoh, your money is in the mail.
Yeah. Well, don't spend it all in one place.
Yeah. Until next week, for Kurt Wheeler, I'm Dale Carter, and this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.